5 friends, 3 boats, and 1 river.
Climax in the first act.
We just got being threatened with a gun.
A journey of 250 miles.
Just gonna have to push on and eat some wet granola.
From the Blue Ridge to our hometown. This is the story of the James River. From the headwaters down.
It's them. It's the Headwater Town Gang.
Hey, thanks so much for having us.
No problem. Who are you and what did you do?
Well, we're some first-time filmmakers based in Richmond, Virginia, and we made a feature film about the James River. We took 3 boats, 5 of us, and we went from sort of the beginning of the James, 250 miles to where we live in Richmond.
The James River of Central Virginia runs through our backyard. Once the most polluted river in America, now known as one of the most resilient. A damaged but special place where friendship and spirit are as enduring as the river itself.
And that's the first film.
It's a pretty historic river, right?
It is. It's where John Smith discovered America or something like that.
What was the name of the river before it became the James? It was Powassan? No.
The Powhatan River.
Okay.
So there were 2, main Native American groups that were settled here, and one was the Monacans, and the Monacan Nation actually occupied most of the land that we were on in this trip, and that's sort of above the fall line or west of Richmond up to the Blue Ridge Mountains. And then the Powhatan, which the river was named after, and the better known of the 2, occupied east of Richmond or below the fall line.
Oh, cool. Okay, that's a long river then. It's always the longest river in the state, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's choose the longest river in the state to do and make a film about it. That sounds like a good idea.
That's more footage,
Yeah, that's true. Well, there was 5 of you, right? We got 3 here, and so I remember you were quoting the Naturalist found nature. So who is the Naturalist?
Yeah, the Naturalist is Andrew Murray. He's a friend of all of ours now. Justin brought him in. Justin kind of assembled this group a couple years ago. He's kind of good at bringing people together, and he played music with Andrew Murray, the Naturalist, and then also Stephen Kuester, who was another musician and kind of the fisherman and old wise man of the group. So Justin brought us all together. The 3 of us on screen now met in college, and that's when we started doing all of our creative stuff together, and just became really good friends. So, but yeah, Murray is he works for the who does he work for now? Forestry Service?
Yeah, Department of Forestry.
Department of Forestry. And just he's a master naturalist, and just kind of knows all things about nature. So he's a good guy to have on a trip like that.
That's cool. So I think I already mentioned, but also you said the narrator found his work. That's one of the beautiful voiceover, right? And so who the narrator was?
Narrator is me. Yep.
We planned all along to have a short day and camp at the base of these mountains in the gorge. It was a good decision.
So yeah, when I was out there, I was basically just making journal entries, trying to record important moments, random thoughts and things like that. And some of that did end up making it into the narration, but it was also just a way of chronicling the trip and making sure we didn't forget things that we didn't catch on film. So yeah.
Guys, was he this calm on the trip? Because he seemed very calm in the narration. Very calm.
Yeah, he's a vibesman for sure. He's he likes to take his time and keep it cool for sure. That's That's Will. Cool.
I mean, I think in a lot of ways that was kind of the spirit of the trip too. It's a really relaxed part of the river. The current takes you along, and of course, that there are a few rapids and scary parts, but for the most part, it's just a beautiful, relaxing float.
So, which one are you actually talking about?
Okay, we have the conical rock, this rock and this rock. We go here.
In between them.
What is that? We actually don't even need momentum. Worst case scenario, we take on a little bit of water and bail it out.
I swear he made up those scary parts just to keep it going. Okay.
It feels that way, right?
So the musician, obviously, he practiced his other craft. His other craft that you mentioned, I think, is fishing, right? So the musician was fishing, and then you had the exacting artist, exacted.
Mm-hmm.
Who's that?
Well, that was me, but it's a little funny because I ended up, the three of us were the main cameramen. I was shooting a lot with my phone, but also with the DSLR. Will was shooting with the phone, and he was also doing all the drone work. And then Dietrich had a really nice cinema camera in tow. So all of us were sort of actually acting as cameramen and artists out there. And then I did the soundtrack. So in a way, maybe I should have been the musician. But Steven is a really, really good pedal steel player. And so he added a lot of awesome pedal steel to the soundtrack. So yeah, we were just trying to kind of compartmentalize ourselves a bit for the viewer so that, they felt like they were joining the troupe of, troubadours or whatever.
Yes, exactly. And Justin is, so I labeled him the artist. Because he kind of, Justin's just all around an incredibly creative person. So I was like, well, someone's got to be the musician, someone's got to be the artist. So that's how we're splitting it up.
That's cool. So who was our actor of our group got comfortable?
That would be me. Yeah, I mean, up until making this film, I have worked in film for about a decade now, but as an actor, a lot of TV and movies. And so that's kind of, pretty much how I identified going into this trip. And then we made a film. So I guess we're all filmmakers now.
That's cool. It's cool. It's like a tossed salad.
It is. It is.
Well, this is Whiskey Fireside Chat. I was going to drink this with you guys, but I don't think that's appropriate because it's a really good film. I'm going to the good stuff.
Oh,
Nice.
Oh, we appreciate that. Yes.
Yes, yeah. I silly me, I thought, well, they're from the South. I'll get some Kentucky. I was like, no.
Well, I'm breaking the rules. I'm drinking mezcal, which is a new find for me. I went on a vacation to Mexico and discovered this mezcal, which is really good. It's smoky, so I think that it sort of fits the theme. But I just mixed it with some soda.
He is the musician.
That's true. He's allowed to break some rules.
So along the journey, you talked about the history of the river, the pollution of the river, the rebirth of the river, the history, the before settlement of it, and also what's happening in it, with it today and what will happen to it in the future. So it's a really good storyline.
Something about flowing water, flowing clear water, has always attracted me. It becomes part of your, in a weird way, part of your identity.
As Virginians, the James River is part of us. It flows through our backyards and the backyards of the 3 million people who live within its watershed. It is Virginia's longest river and its largest source of drinking water. And yet, it is one of our most polluted waterways.
I love the whole idea that it all connected. But it was a moment too where you said, gosh, I think we climaxed at the beginning. because a whole bunch of things happened. The rapids, and we'll get to the gun. But then you got past halfway through, 3/4 through, and you're worried that was just going to be a float down. Let's get this over with. Yes. So it didn't, though, did it?
It did not. No.
I'd like to ask you this, and whose fault was it that you lost your canoe?
Oh,
it was probably Dietrich or Steven's fault.
Yeah, I mean, it was our boat. But I think, we got unlucky because none of the boats were tied up.
True.
That night.
Yeah, our boat was flipped over, but theirs was not tied up, and there was a kayak that was also not tied up. But the secret of the film is I actually pushed it off to make for a better story. Just kidding.
That's true. Justin discovered it was missing, so he was partly to blame. I say we blame Steven, though, since he's not here.
When in doubt, yeah. So you met a lot of people along the way, goods and bads. And the one scene where you got the bads, wow, is incredible you got on film. I know you didn't, get the guy's face, whatever, but that would be very stressful. And can you explain what happened?
Yeah. So I'll sort of start, but I think all of us should probably chime in on this. I had a underwater case on my phone. And so I was out diving around trying to film like some fish and stuff. And I saw those guys come up, and it just didn't feel right from the beginning. So I walked back up to camp, and I had my phone in my hand, and that's sort of when everything went down. And luckily I just started recording, unbeknownst to Dietrich and Will. And I'll let sort of them pick it up from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that is not shown in the film is that there were about 10 of those guys. There were more of them down on the bank, and we'd actually seen them throughout the day because they were flying these like ridiculous flags from their canoes, and just kind of being very it was, they were just hard to miss. And the one guy in particular was extremely aggressive and started threatening us. We were on this huge island, again, which the film discusses. I mean, massive island. You could have had 50 people camping there and people would have been out of each other's hair. But this guy was just immediately went to like, we have more guns than you, we have more people than you, we're more aggressive than you, and if you guys don't leave in 15 minutes, things are going to get real. And Steven, who supposed to be the old wise man, he was acting not very wise. He was like, we're not going anywhere. And I was like, we're leaving.
So this is not a normal occurrence on this river, right? Just so that let people know, doesn't happen every day.
No, definitely not. And again, we had just met some really awesome, as they refer to themselves, some long haulers. These two older gentlemen, clearly old friends. They've been boating forever. I think they were on at least a 5 to 7 day trip on that part of the river, and they were awesome. We pulled over. We made a little flotilla with them earlier that day. We realized we were camping at the same spot as them, which is this awesome spot across from these like 100-foot bluffs. And we were like, even though there's kind of enough room for us to crowd in there, like, let's let them have, the spot that they wanted to have. So we kind of ceded our camp spot to them that night, and or at least maybe that was the day before. But that's more the reaction, the interaction that you get on the river, which is people coming together, having a great time, and talking about the trip that they're on. So the aggression, I think, is out of the ordinary. But
well, you went on tour with this. You sold out everywhere. Got a whole bunch of awards. Were you worried that they were going to be in the audience one night?
Yeah. A little bit.
I mean, they didn't really seem like the kind of people that would be very into film festivals and the arts in general. So it felt pretty safe in that capacity. But I will say, like, the more we showed it, I would go back to the edit and just blur out their faces a little bit more. It's just like, as it kept getting more popular, it's like, man, I really don't want them to see this.
Yeah, that's sad. That's sad that you have to live your life that way. But yeah, that's pretty sad. But, oh man. Oh wow. That you think about it, all the things in wilderness that people think that will destroy them and kill them off, whatever. It's not. It's humans, right? So,
exactly. It's always humans.
Man, that's crazy.
Well, and just to add to the story, because this didn't quite make it into the film, but we pulled away and they were kind of, Dietrich was like, man, we gotta like somehow recreate that or tell the story. And I was like, no, guys, I was filming. And they were like, I think Dietrich started weeping. But then we were, maybe a half mile down the river and we just hear a full clip of gunshots unloaded. So, I mean, they weren't lying about having a gun, and they wanted us to know it after they left. It was very, very real. And then when they passed us early the next morning, it was a super awkward sight seeing them paddle by, and the guy who was really angry was still really angry. So
there must be some issue. Yeah, must be some issue going on with them. You did actually talk really good about that. In fact, the quote, I'll have to find the quote. The beauty and wonder of the world all lost with bad attitude.
Yep.
And then you had a scene where you're all swimming and you all had positive attitudes, and you sort of swung that negative into a positive. The whole film was like that, to be quite honest. There's a lot of secret messages, or not secret, but inner messages, the calmness of the narrator, oh my Lord. And but also a lot of humor. I gotta ask you, like, what blew me away, the one scene I was watching it, oh, this is good. John Muir, Whitman's in there, oh, this is fantastic. And all of a sudden the Chef Boyardee with a can of ravioli. Explain, what's that? You were drinking, weren't you?
We had a couple drinks for sure. But okay, so Stephen, who did the monologue, I met him on this, or not on this trip, but on another canoe trip that we did before this. And we just discovered that we had a love of Chef Boyardee, specifically the spaghetti and meatballs. And yeah, we would just talk about it a lot and celebrate it. And I just wanted to give the chef a moment in the spotlight, in the limelight. And oddly, like, Stephen and I both knew the history of Chef Boyardee, which is kind of an interesting history. And he was a heroic figure, contributed to the war effort in World War I. It's just an interesting story. And I think people who enjoy Chef find each other.
So I guess what I'm getting at to the people that are listening, if you haven't seen the film yet, you should. It's a great film, a great story, but there's some humor in there. And some really, I wouldn't call it dry humor, just like, not even satire humor, just a bunch of guys in the river having fun.
Exactly. Well, we wanted to communicate that. That's such an important part of a trip, is just the joy and fun that you have out there, especially as a group. There's something to being on the river by yourself. We're able to have a little more reflection, but it's special going down with the crew where, you're joking, you're drinking, you're having a good time, and you're just making your way down the river, not really worrying about what's next. And Steven's a funny guy, so some of the funniest moments in the film are just him riffing and all of us cracking up in the background. And that's just how it is.
The one shot too. Who was it? The one that walked into the river naked at night?
Oh yeah, that's me.
There you go. All right. Oh, I recognize you now. That was a good moment too. It was like, oh, looks like they're all having fun. So because that was right after the gun scene, and you're like, we need a few drinks tonight to calm down. So
yeah, letting off some steam.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, at the end of the film, there was low water. You were into development, more pollutants than the upper. It looked like the upper was quite wild, and then the middle stretch, give and take, and then the lower not. And it was not surprising. I mean, you're going into the big city area. So you ended up meeting a guide, and he helped you down the whitewater. And then, did you second guess going back and redoing it? Because I like that part of the end where you went back and did that scene where the water was up. So it made it look like the river was not always like that.
Yeah, so the James River is really dynamic. Like, the water level changes a lot here in Richmond. Most of the time, people don't usually take canoes through the lower section here until it gets really low in the summer. I actually went back and became a whitewater guide last year because I was so inspired by that rafting trip we did with him. And that was when we wanted to show that, this lower section, we call it the lower in Richmond, is a really fun river to run if you're into whitewater. And it's great. I mean, there's class 2s and 3s, and it gets up to class 4s when we get higher water. And so, we just wanted to sort of honor that part of the river culture that is here in Richmond.
Are you worried that the film was so successful that more and more people are now going to paddle it?
I think that would be a good thing. We believe that more people getting out there is gonna create more awareness and more care for the sections and the places where the river still needs a lot of help.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I would just say, like, to Justin's point, Richmond does have such a strong scene. I mean, it's in this urban city, but one of the coolest part of the river, the fall line, where there's just millions of rock islands, places to hang out, you know, class 2, class 3, one after another. And I mean, you go out on any day in the summer, even the middle of the week, and I mean, you'll see endless line of boaters, rafters, paddle boarders, everybody using the river. And so the urban scene, river scene in Richmond is so strong. So there's already a lot of people on the river. It's pretty cool.
But not many people would do the whole thing like you guys did. So
Definitely
so
not.
Yeah. What was it like going through you went through 2 national forests, right? The center part and also at the end the James River National Forest. Were they more wild or?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean the Washington and Jefferson Forest, and then within that there's some almost like refuge like areas in the gorge. And that's where we saw things that we never expected to see in Virginia, like tree frogs and different species of snakes and animals, and just an incredible amount of wild bird life and natural beauty. So yeah, those parts are special, and you do feel it. You feel like all of a sudden things are a little more remote, little wilder, and that's a great feeling, obviously.
That's great. All right, so who was sorry for I forget the person you quoted.
Werner Herzog.
Yes, which actually I had to look up. I mean, I'm well read, but I had to look up, and you banged it like and you said, you know, was it 1 take or 2 takes? But can you do it now?
Oh no, I don't have it memorized now. I'm sorry. Oh, I should have prepared.
Taking a close look at what's around us, there is some sort of a harmony. It is the harmony of overwhelming and collective murder. And we, in comparison to the articulate vileness and baseness and obscenity of all this jungle, we, in comparison to that enormous articulation, we only sound and look like badly pronounced and half-finished sentences out of a stupid suburban novel, a cheap novel.
But yeah, Werner Herzog is a just an unbelievably powerful force of a human being. He's made so many this wasn't a book he wrote or anything. This is from a documentary about him having his crazy journey down a river while trying to make a movie, Burden of Dreams, which was about him making the movie Fitzcarraldo. And I feel like I really tried to take the spirit of Werner Herzog on this trip, and really just in life in general, just the way that he approaches everything, how closely he looks at everything, and how committed he is to telling stories. But yeah, that was just a funny moment in his film of total despair almost at this project. And I think it was reflected in our journey with the rain and all the difficulties that we had. And yeah, it just felt perfectly apt.
Well, you did an amazing job. I think all of you brought something different to the journey and to the film. At the end of the film, you ended I forget who said it, but it said it. The ending this journey is like finishing high school. What's with that?
Well, I think he said it was Andrew Murray, and he said, yeah, it's like the last day of high school. You know, it's like graduating. Hopefully, we don't, trip and fall and drown or something like that, like going to get your diploma. And I think he just kind of meant it was bittersweet, that it had been such a long journey, and it was hard in a lot of ways. At the same time, I think there's a feeling after 12 or 13 days where you kind of have figured out how to live out there. And so there's a piece of you that wants to just stay out there, but that you kind of have to move on with your life and finish the trip.
And yeah, it's just that like that last night feeling where you did the trip already. I mean, it's pretty much, it's all done, but you're still out there, and you get to look back and forward at the same time, and see the difference between, you know, where you're coming from and where you're going. And yeah, it's just such a unique feeling, that last night feeling.
We even ended the film with I should memorize this. I know. I was writing all this stuff down watching your film. It was great. The scariest moment, I think, hasn't happened yet. I think the scariest moment is when we finally step foot back on solid ground and this trip is over.
Yeah.
Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's saying goodbye to that experience. And you know, especially a long trip like that, it changes you a little bit. And you get so comfortable being out there, you get so comfortable living on the water, and you have to take person that got comfortable there, that feels right out there, and bring them back into society. And it's so jarring. And everything, you know, it looks different, everything feels different. And yeah, it's unsettling, but you know, it's exciting too. And I think it's a big part of what makes these extended trips, or really any trip into nature, worthwhile, is those changes that you feel.
That's cool. Okay, so what next? I mean, no pressure. You've got a renowned film winning all these awards. You've got some people hunting you down.
So we this past summer we took sea kayaks from Richmond to the Chesapeake Bay to finish the James River. So that was a 110, 120 mile trip. We did that in 10 days, totally different river. It's tidal. We were all in sea kayaks. So that was a different sort of feeling from a filming standpoint, but also just from being kind of out on our own. And it felt a little less like we were together and more like we were kind of on our own journeys. So we're in post-production on that film right now. We just got the news that we'll be working with the Southern Documentary Fund as a fiscal sponsor. So we'll be able to accept donations to help us finish that film. And then along the way, we also saw a bunch of wildlife, which kind of got us interested in making some more wildlife type films. So we're also working on a short film about the Atlantic sturgeon, which I'll let Will talk a little bit about the Atlantic sturgeon if you want. But
oh yeah, sure. I got totally obsessed with this fish. We all kind of did for a little bit, but myself especially. And yeah, the sturgeon is so cool. It's a very endangered fish. And the James River is one of the only rivers in the world where you can find Atlantic sturgeon. They predominantly live on the eastern seaboard of the United States and Canada. So some Canadian rivers have them as well. But an ancient prehistoric fish, they can grow to be absolutely enormous, 15 feet long, 1,000 pounds, live for 100 years. And for a couple brief weeks in the fall, for the James population, they breach and they jump out of the water in this awesome display of power and just beauty that you really can't find in a freshwater fish or in those rivers. Nothing is really like it. And so we wanted to see we just wanted to see if we could find a sturgeon. They're so freaking rare. But the James has started a restoration project 16 years ago that's been incredibly successful. And we went out day after day for about 3 weeks straight, and we were able to get some pretty amazing footage of this endangered fish, and we're really excited to make a short film about it. So
that's really cool. Very good indicator species. Like, sorry, my background is fish and wildlife. I still work, and I used to for many years work with the sturgeon, and cartilage bone, not hollow bone, 100 years old. It's just incredible. But they're very finicky, and when something happens to them, then you're doing something wrong, right? So, would you say that the James River is a success story, or is there just kind of looking into it?
It is a success story. The scientists thought in the 90s that the entire Chesapeake Bay population of sturgeon was extinct, and they are a species that has populations like that. But they started seeing them, and then they looked into it and they realized there might be a few more than they thought because they're so hard to find. And the restoration project took them from maybe a couple hundred, and now they think 3,000 to 8,000 in the James. And that's still only about 1% of the original population that used to spawn there. It used to be about 300,000. So it is a success story, but it has a long way to go. And to your point, they are the most sensitive fish in the bay system. So they are an incredible indicator species. So things are getting better, but there's certainly no time to rest on our laurels when it comes to improving water quality. There's a long way to go.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, it looked like an incredible river, but just like all rivers, it was better on the upper part, and then historically it gets worse along the way down.
Exactly.
It remind me of Robert Perkins, a great filmmaker from the States. Back in the 90s, he did a film on the Connecticut River. It's the same idea. He went from the tributaries, and it was similar format of what you guys did. Like, is it being cleaned up or not? All right. So to end it, where can everybody watch this film?
The film is available to rent on Amazon Prime. And then the trailer is free. That's up on YouTube. Headwaters Down. We have an Instagram account where we are posting updates and all sorts of news in terms of the upcoming films. And then we have a YouTube channel we're starting to post more clips from the film on the YouTube channel as well.
And your music as well, right?
Yep. So the soundtrack is out on Spotify, Apple Music, all those places. You can search Headwaters Down official soundtrack, or you can search my artist name, which is Saul Black, SAWBLACK.
Guys, he seems like a professional. I wouldn't really guess it with that hair. I just didn't guess it. You know,
Curly
the hair and all the guitars in the background. I thought he'd be like, yeah, man, whatever. No.
He's an exacting artist. What can we say?
Yeah, I had a lot of media training throughout these festivals, so
That's true.
Well, before I let you guys go, two questions to end it. One is, who was the first to get up in the morning, and who was the last to go to bed?
I was the first, because one of my sad duties was getting the sunrise every morning with the drone. So I don't know why I got myself into that, but yeah, I was getting up at like 5:30 every morning to catch those beautiful sunrise moments. Occasionally I had Justin and Dietrich out there joining me, getting beautiful shots on the cinema cameras. But yeah, I think I got up earlier than everyone every single morning.
And I stayed up later.
Yeah,
I generally slept in most days too.
Dietrich was in charge of all the data, so the
True.
data Dietrich would be out with his laptop, up to the wee hours of the morning, transferring
backing up all the footage. Yeah.
all the footage.
All right, so last question. I'm from Canada. I live just near Algonquin Park. We've got a lot of wild areas, and I watched your film, and the scenery was amazing. I was like, well, cool. I didn't know the Virginia had that, and well, I kind of did, but not as much. So how would you convince me to go and do that river, the same route that you did, and do it in one word?
I would say chill.
It's hard. One word is pretty tough.
That is tough.
Notice how the actor answered first. He's gone through lessons on this.
Yes.
This does. It feels like an acting exercise.
I would say Virginia. And to expand, I just think it's such a good portrait of Virginia, because it runs from the Blue Ridge just a few miles from West Virginia to the bay, and it's so green and beautiful. And that's certainly, I grew up in that part of the state, and it feels, as I say in the film, just feels so Virginia to me. So I'll just say Virginia. If you want to see Virginia, that's a great river.
That's awesome. I had John Denver in my head throughout the film, but
I'd say beauty. It's pretty cliche, but it is a beautiful river, and especially that upper section. I think you'd like it. If you want to come down and do that upper section, let us know, Kevin.
That'd be awesome. Awesome. I'll bring some Canadian rye down.
Yes.
Actually, I wouldn't. To be quite honest, your bourbon is a lot better than our Canadian rye. Just saying. Yeah.
Well, Canada's better in like everything else. So yeah.
So yeah, but not the rye. No. Scotland and Virginia, we're good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot. Cheers, everybody, and cheers to the next project. And yeah. Cheers. And I got to say, if I had to say one word of watching your film, it had a good vibe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That
Cheers.
means the most. Cheers, Kevin. Appreciate that.
Cheers.
And one thing becomes very clear. The James is a glorious resource, but its health is currently declining, and it remains a deeply troubled river. Join us as we pick up our paddles again and continue this journey in our next film. From Richmond to the Chesapeake Bay. The river turns tidal and widens, and the issues run deeper. The Lower James is a place where industry, culture, and nature have fermented together for centuries. Help us elevate this film to educate and inspire those who love the James River, so that we can work together to bring about positive change for this incredible natural resource. Together, let's continue this journey from the headwaters down.
Well, it can only get better.